All right, this is the week ahead here on SABC News. As we always do at this time, we are going to bring in our specialist desk editors and senior reporters to open up their diaries and actually tell you what's coming up ahead so that we put you ahead of the curve. First up is Mzwandile Mbeje, the SABC's political editor. Mzwai, good afternoon. We're spending a lot of time, you and I, and it is absolutely great. Tell me what's on the radar this week. Let's start with politics of the tripartite alliance and especially the ANC. What's coming up?
Well, remember that we still are waiting for that kind of a meeting that will really see where they go in terms of agreeing. Already the SACP has made it clear that they are going to go it alone. And the ANC, and by the way, the question we've been asking even last week was to ask from COSATU to say, you have two of your trusted allies, they have decided to go their separate ways. Who are you backing? So this is going to be very interesting. And then we are looking at this, also looking into the NEC that is coming at the end of the month, because there's much more that NEC needs to look at. Remember, at some point after the budget was not passed or was not even presented at the first attempt, because there were disagreements within the GNU, so there were loud voices that perhaps the partners that constituted the GNU needed to be either changed or done differently.
A reconfiguration.
So, a reconfiguration of sorts. So that meeting of the NEC, which was to decide that, so somehow was put in abeyance, and between then and now, there's been a lot that has happened. So it will be very interesting. I know it's still a few weeks away, but it's going to be very interesting to us to see what will be the final decision. Will you continue with the GNU as is? Will you strengthen it? Will you dump some of the partners? So that is one area that we'll be looking at, particularly in this June.
But what's our reading of the mood and temperature, Mzwai? I mean, I know that it escalated at the time at which there was disagreement over the budget. But as you say, a lot of water has passed under that bridge, with the result that the budget has been passed. We saw that trip to the United States, and John Steenhuisen was part of that. Has that somewhat tempered the tensions, or does the consternation and discomfort continue to exist among some quarters in the tripartite alliance?
It has somehow tempered the tensions, but of course there are those who are still adamant to say the way this GNU is set up at the moment is not sustainable. If you don't then have to reconfigure it by taking some people out, maybe add one or two individuals. You remember at the hour of need, I think the ANC felt the Action SA played part, and you would realize that I think as they meet, they would have that in mind to say, when we wanted someone to be on our side, someone who's outside did come to our side. So clearly those negotiations could start to happen. But I would agree with you. Tempers have somehow kind of like come down.
Even though they're litigating against each other endlessly.
And that makes it so interesting. But also, remember, as a country, this is a new territory for us. I mean, we are not used to the GNU or even coalition government, if you were to place it in its proper context. And I remember when the election results were out, and then we wanted to know how the form and shape of government will take place. And obviously, we had to look at what happens elsewhere. And I remember we checked with the DRC. They had informed government for months. And I remember in one occasion in Belgium, it took more than a year to form government. So with us, it didn't really take that long. But remember, this is for us still pretty new. We're still going to see a lot of reconfigurations. But it's going to be quite interesting to us.
Tell me about the stories we're watching out of the IFP. I saw that one of their MPs passed away, sadly. But there's more developments coming out of the party as well.
Yes, it's quite interesting. I think our first reaction was, is this political? But I mean, we've since gone in there to check. It may appear that it may not necessarily political, perhaps more of a criminal issue, or perhaps issues related to dynamics that may be outside of politics. But I think the spokesperson of the IFP will be able to, I think, perhaps shed light later on today, because we've been trying to find out what exactly is this, especially because we know that later this year, we expect that the IFP is going to go to an elective conference. So there's no date, nothing concluded as yet.
Yeah.
So it could easily raise temperatures. But as I've said, Thulas, from what we have been able to dig up, I don't think it's really political, perhaps more of a criminal matter. Yeah. But of course, once I think police go in further, so will be perhaps more clearer.
Yeah.
Yes, and also that issue of the IFP, it's something to watch, because we know at some point there appeared that there could be a contestation.
Yeah.
So is that done? Is that over? And with the budget, remember how budget somehow, in inverted commas, threw the IFP under the bus after supporting the budget to say it may assist the poor. So a lot has happened.
But I mean, they've got a way, haven't they, the IFP, of managing. Sometimes, I mean, it promises that there'll be contestation, but come the date and the period for the elective conference, it ends up not being as dramatic, especially if you think of the experience transitioning from the leadership of the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi to Velenkosini Hlabisa. A lot was expected there, and a lot, given also the context of breakaway parties having happened in the past, but in the end, it didn't amount to much.
In fact, you're right. Especially, I think in March, they were celebrating the 50 years of existence. One of the themes that ran through was that they needed to unite. And I get a sense, Thulas, that perhaps they will decide that this conference shouldn't be contested, but obviously it's up to the membership of the IFP. You can decide as leadership, but if the membership has a different view, that's something else. How robust will they be? I'm not sure. I suspect that it may be more of an agreed leadership. Perhaps where we'll see sparks fly is a conference after this, because I guess they would want to be seen to honor and respect the founder. And then beyond that, so they are on their own.
Yeah. And then the last point you want to talk to me about, Mzwai. Tell me about, I don't know what this is about, the Constitution. You said you want to raise that.
Yes. You know that time and again, there'll be a period where people are allowed to make submissions.
The Constitution
in terms of, So the deadline was last night for those who wanted to make submissions. So what we want to do, in fact, we did do this story 2 weeks ago, where we were basically speaking to organizations that are very interested in this, because you find that Thulas, people, when certain things happen, they would say it's because of this Constitution.
Yes.
But then there is an opportunity to say, now let's go for the Constitution review. So what are you saying? And people even don't know about that or don't make submissions. So we made it an effort to find out exactly who is saying what. Do you want certain sections amended, or do you even want the entire Constitution changed? So our colleagues in Parliament will be able to speak to the co-chairs, because I think it's being chaired by two people, the co-chairs, to find out, have the submissions been high this time around? If they are, so what are they actually saying? Are they fine with the Constitution as is, or there are certain aspects that they want to change? So for me, that was very interesting, because I mean, I can tell you, whether it's the issue of crime or people being released in jail, the first thing people, they will say, this is your Constitution. So now, when the opportunity to then review it, so do you actively get into that process?
And what is review?
Exactly.
What is amend?
Yes.
How powerful is this review? Is an important conversation as well.
It's an important conversation. That's why I think the co-chairs will be able to share with us. And my colleague Abra is supposed, maybe around this time, in terms of my engagement with her, she was going to speak to one of the co-chairs to really get a sense what exactly.
And I saw some calls, Mzwai, as a final point on this story. Some calls that were asking for this period for public participation to be extended.
Yes.
But that hasn't happened, has it?
That hasn't happened. And I think this could be as a result, Thulas, of placing this matter into the spotlight because nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
But of course, it's our responsibility as journalists to raise some of these issues to the fore. And then as soon as this issue started going around and people started to say, oh, there's this process.
Yeah.
Why is the time so short? Because I think even when we raised it, it was about 2 weeks before the closing date.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure other people who would have an interest in this would want to perhaps make an effort. So it's going to be very interesting.
All right, Mzwai, thank you. Good to see you once again. Mzwandile Mbeje. He and I are spending a lot of time together over the weekends, and it's absolutely great.